Hi, everyone. I'm here today to talk about progressive web apps with Angular and Firebase. My name is Erik Haddad. You can tweet at me, Erik Haddad. And a little bit about me. I live in San Francisco. I'm a Googler, and I am on the Firebase team. Now, I'm going to cover a lot here, and apologies in advance for talking really fast. I get really passionate about this subject. And there surely is a lot of interplay between Angular, PWA, and Firebase. So real quick, what is Angular? At every conference that I speak at, there are some people who are just learning what Angular is, so I like to give a little introduction and a little bit of history. So Angular is a platform that makes it easy to build applications with web. We started V1, which will be referred to as AngularJS, and Angular for everything thereafter. Now, Angular affords us a lot of different tooling for scaffolding and generation, serving and developing, building and distributing, and testing. Now, the Angular code can take many different forms. It's portable, it's PWA, it's Ionic, NativeScript, and Electron, all for a more mobile or desktop-centric. And stay tuned for Christian's talk right after mine, where he'll talk about Ionic and Electron. Next, what is a progressive web app? Well, progressive web apps, PWAs for short, are kind of a big deal. Now, they're radically improving the user experience by being more reliable, faster, and more engaging. Now, reliable, let's say you go through a tunnel and you lose connectivity. You want to? Okay. You still want that content available to you, regardless of your internet connection. And once you've completed your tasks and you regain connectivity, those changes get pushed out. Now, we also want it to be fast. Now, 53% of users will abandon the site if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. We've all been there, right? There are also 2 billion users who don't currently have connectivity or have really bad connectivity, so we want our applications to be fast. So when they're loading over Edge or a really slow connection, they're not there for 10, 15 seconds waiting for your site to load. So adjust your thresholds and your tolerance levels. So also engaging, we want the ability to install the application to the home screen and also be able to push notifications and messages to the application. And we can also add some theming to it to give our application some personality. Now, how does this all work? There's a service worker behind the scenes that runs separately from the web page, and it takes care of a lot of tasks behind, and you don't have to worry about it, like push notifications and background services. Now, it has an intimate knowledge of the structure of your application for assets and data, et cetera, and the offline cache strategies to make your application more performant. You can kind of think of it as a proxy with your machine and the data layers and also your application. It's going between to make sure your application runs fantastic. Now, how does Angular play into this? Of late, Angular has stepped up PWA support, and the goal is to make the applications better and supply Angular-aware tooling for building great PWAs. How does it do that? Well, hoping to make PWA by default. Now, here's a CLI command, ng new, and you can activate the service worker that way, and Angular CLI will generate all that you need. Now, it's also going to go into your Angular CLI.json, and it's going to set service worker to true. And through that, magic happens. Just one quick example of how to engage on your applications and how Angular makes it simple. Right here, you'll see some code that will, given your public, whether it's a vapid key or whatever public key you want to use, you just include that into service worker push and request a subscription, and it handles everything else. The days of having to write complex code are over. Now, what are the pieces that make this all work? Now the manifest.json's been around for a while, and I'll show you an example shortly where you're specifying a title, a short name, some logos, and entry points. NGSW config is your way of specifying strategies for data and asset freshness and caching, and also the location of assets. And the ngsw.json and ngsw worker are generated for you by Angular when you build a prod. Now, as I mentioned, here's simple manifest.json with a short name, a name, some icons. And those icons will appear on the home screen once they add to the home screen. And you can specify many different resolutions. And your start entry URL. Now here's a sample NGSW. Like I said, there's an update mode, different patterns to match on URLs, and strategy for caching. And it will generate the hash tables once it's built to your app. That's all well and good. Now, how can Firebase help me make my PWA? Now, Firebase gives a bunch of tooling and services that play really well with Angular and PWA. Now, if you didn't have Firebase, you would have to think of it in a different way. This is the traditional app development where you'd have a device, you'd have a server, and a database. You would have to maintain that server, applying security patches, etc., and database, making sure it's scalable, what have you. Now, with Firebase, you just simply drop in an SDK, or as I'll talk about later, Angular Fire library, and it just works. You have access to database, storage, and authentication. Those are the three primitives. And it's really what Firebase was known for going back 3-4 years ago. First, the database. It allows you to sync your data in real time, so no need to refresh your page. The data just updates in your UI. Now, authentication. It's really difficult to write email password combinations, making sure that you hash it and salt it and make sure your passwords are secure, and composing email templates, etc., and managing forgot password, all that stuff, forget about it. You have different sign-in methods supported. So all you have to do is go in the console and enable Google, Facebook, Twitter, GitHub. You have email or login. You have anonymous and also phone auth, which we added last year. Now, all of those give you the ability to know your user, one single identity across all of them. Now, storage. How do we make sure that our assets are massively scalable and also secure? Well, dropping in the SDK enables a secure connection. It also makes sure that the transfer is completed, even in spotty conditions. Now, we have those three primitives. How do we pull that all together? How can we make all of these primitives work in your favor? And here's where Cloud Functions for Firebase comes in. It's kind of the glue between all of them. It's a true serverless solution, and lets you extend and connect Firebase with other network requests and also all Google Cloud has to offer. Now, what can functions do? So here we have the three primitives, and then it's based on triggers. So if this happens, what should I do? So in the case of a database, if I wrote something, I can respond to it and propagate out. Let's say a user has logged in for the first time. We can take that user data, that authentication data, and store a custom profile. One such example, let's say I use my device and I upload an image to storage. Well, the function can look at that new asset and go, hey, I'm going to resize that for you. It'll do the resizing, and it'll store the paths in the real-time database or in Firestore. And then it'll also tie it to a user. And all that happens just because you uploaded an image. Cuts down on a lot of maintenance. And there are many different ways that you can use it. And on GitHub, there are many samples to add to your application, so you don't have to write the code yourself. All right, so all that's well and good. So the real-time database was the classic approach, where it's just a JSON blob. And then Firebase, owned by Google, also has access to all that Google Cloud has to offer. And Cloud has a data store product. When combined, you get Firebase Cloud Firestore. And it's the next generation, as I said. How is it better? Well, it's even easier to use. You still have that real-time capability. It's much, much more scalable, and you have much richer querying capabilities. Also great, it works across all platforms, even better security rules, and here's where it ties into PWAs. Now you have offline support. Still synchronizing the data, even in offline, online scenarios. And you still have that rich querying capability even without network connectivity, all in your local cache. Cool little console to manage your data. There's a hierarchical data structure, so if you're used to Mongo with documents and collections, this is for you. And also rich data types. So whereas real-time database before, you could put data in and you couldn't strongly type, much the same way JavaScript and TypeScript brought on the rich data type. Some sample documents here, pretty simple structure. A document, an array of documents can belong to a collection. And before we had to denormalize because there was no shallow querying. Here's a messy structure, and now that same structure, you can query across it and have more expressive queries. And simple data models with sub-collections, et cetera. So it's a truly serverless database solution, and you have all those auth and rules and persistence and all those things, just enabling the Cloud Firestore. And like I said, offline ready, durable writes, document cache, and local results. And also great is conflict resolution. Let's say you have been working offline, and someone else has been working offline on the same thing. It will resolve the conflicts for you once the network connectivity is up. And like I said, there are pros and cons with Firestore and real-time database. I am about to show you some code for both. I'm going to give a little bit more emphasis to Firestore, but they each have their pros and cons. So, as I mentioned earlier, Angular Fire 2 is the way that it all comes together. So it talks to Firebase, it talks to Angular, and it makes your life a lot easier. So it's currently at version 5, RC6. I'm going to be talking today about Angular Fire 2. Angular Fire is your AngularJS option, and a lot of the same capabilities are available through it. It's observable based. We love RxJS, right? Real-time data binding, so you have three-way data binding. And you can monitor your authentication state in real time. And it's very modular, as you've heard many times, tree shaking and making sure that your app is performant and small and compact. All these things, you use what you want. So getting started, the installation there, I do want to call out here in your imports by saying .enable persistence. That will give you your offline capability. Environment variables, same as it has been within the console. Copy paste some few lines of configuration code and you're up and running. Now injecting it in the component. Here I'm using all of them in the constructor. Use what you want. And for auth, this is how simple it is. You can monitor, like I said, the authentication in real time. You have some simple HTML off to the side, and here's your TypeScript. Handles all login, log out for you. And real quick, the real-time database, the collection/list, this is what it would take. And you can see the interface with Firestore, very similar. This is all it takes to add, update, delete, and remove all. And using observables here with the async pipe, you can output the contents of your collection. Real-time database objects, very much like Firestore documents. And this is some simple code here to save, update, and delete. Now, real-time database, Angular Fire 2 support for real-time database was clutch because it added the missing piece of querying. So here for real-time database, the querying capabilities, and here for Firestore are the baked-in querying capabilities. So lastly, I believe I'm the first person to talk about this. This was merged into master just 2 weeks ago, and now there's full support for storage within Angular Fire, and I'll be demoing that shortly. With it, you can monitor the state and upload progress. Cool. So let's check out a real quick demo app. I've created an app called Fire Chat. Now I'm going to demonstrate the authentication. I'm going to sign in with Google. Now it, behind the scenes, is handling all the tokens and permissions, and yeah, and we're in. So I like a dark theme, so I've just saved that off into the background. I'm going to create a new room here called NG Europe, test room. Make what? Oh. Okay, and now we have a new room. I'm going to say hello. Now what this is doing, it just sent that in English. Now functions behind the scene is looking at all the messages sent, and now I'm multilingual. So I can go through, and using the power of Cloud Translate, now I have all different languages supported. So let's say now I'm in French mode, and now I'm going to say, thank you. Now when I go back up through all the languages, oh gosh. I knew I'd be hijacked at some point. All right, cool. So pretty powerful, pretty simple, right? Now let's demonstrate storage. So here's Flame Guy, and I'm going to upload it. Ideally, I would have had a better UI for update spinner and whatnot, but here we have Flame Guy, all uploaded. Now, thanks to Angular Material, this is also fully responsive. And off to the side, you can see that we have some service workers registered off on the side. Okay. I also had push notifications in there. It's commented out for obvious reasons today during the demo, but have at it. Cool. So that's a quick demo app, and at the end I'll share the source. And here's what that actually looks like. So apologies for showing any email addresses in advance, but here are the different ways that people have authenticated, and you can control that and delete. And here's how you would actually enable different sign-in methods. Okay, cool. So all that data that's being stored, we have custom user profiles that I've created using functions. Here's our one room. Feel free to create other rooms. And the room messages. So this is me dumping the original input, and here's the output in all the different languages. Cool. And as far as storage, oh, we got some fun stuff there. I don't know if I'm clicking on something. Yeah, so you can view any images that were uploaded through Angular Fire 2. There it is. Cool. Let's quick look at the console. Now, how do we make sure that we're doing the right thing in benchmarking our app? Well, there's a cool little tool called Lighthouse. It used to be a separate extension, and now it's baked into Chrome. So the Chrome Developer Tools uses Lighthouse for auditing. It's an open source automated tool for improving the quality of your web pages. It'll look at the performance, the accessibility, PWA score, and best practices. You can find it under the Audits tab. And what are the things it's looking for as a PWA? So it has to be secure, and by the way, Firebase hosting gives you a free SSL certificate to make sure that it's secure. Make sure all the pages are responsive on tablet and mobile devices. Double checks the start URLs, your metadata, and it will thoroughly check that your speeds are performant and works across browsers, and has pretty good support. And good news, last week Safari put out a beta for the support. So a lot of when I said it's the future, I wasn't joking. All these things are emerging. And what does one of those audits look like? So I ran this earlier today, and yay, 100 score on the PWA performance. Now this, like I said, will take you through first meaningful paint and will give you recommendations on how to improve your app. This is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And for things like accessibility, making sure that you have alt tags on your images and labels and whatnot, this will help you along the way and make you a better developer. So feel free to run that audit. All right. So in summary, PWA's big deal, and Angular is there to help you make the best progressive web apps. And Firebase will be there to help you take care of the monotonous stuff, and you can focus on innovating, not maintenance. And Angular Fire and Angular Fire 2 sit on top of Angular and use RxJS to provide you real-time and responsive interfaces. And benchmarking your app is super easy with Lighthouse and Chrome DevTools. And yeah, can't stress enough, focus on innovation and let other people do the heavy lifting. Work smart, not hard. And all of the stuff I demonstrated, you have huge amounts of quota. Go ahead and hack away. And there are a bunch of other things that Firebase offers that I won't get to talk about today, but analytics and push messaging, all that stuff, feel free to check that out. Some credits and references, and merci beaucoup.